Juneau's early developments in the late 19th and early 20th centuries have disappeared after being abandoned or falling into ruin, but much of it remains simply obscured and forgotten by the passage of time. And today we'll be hearing about some of Juneau's hidden history. Please welcome with us Joe McCabe and Brian Weed. So Joe, let me ask you first, how did this group get started? You guys got a Facebook page and,
right.
and the group itself, how did it originate?
Yeah, I actually met Brian through another Facebook page, Juno's photography group, and he'd been posting his hikes on there, looking for people to hike with. And so I hooked up with him, went on a couple hikes, and we got along really well, and we got to talking that we should probably start up our own Facebook page, and just to do mine stuff. So we're looking for people to hike safely with, as well as Brian's also trying to write a book. We were looking for funding for his book. And we thought having a social media page out there would be a good idea. And we decided to try to write a grant to get him a Juneau history grant from the City Museum. And we wanted to see if we get a bunch of members in the Juneau's Hidden History group to say, hey, look, people are really, really interested in this. And that's kind of how it got started. And we've been rolling from there.
So in the last couple of years, what, from 50 to 5,000?
Yeah, we were thrilled when we hit 100 members, like, wow, this is great, people actually love us, this is great. We're posting pictures and we're getting hikers to come out with us and they're enjoying everything, and now it's 5450, I think.
Yeah. So why do you think it's become so popular? What's the attraction? Is it the discovery? Is it the history? Is it the mystery behind some of the things in town?
Well, I think it's the mystery, and I think people are realizing how much of this history is right in their backyards. I mean, I posted a question on our Facebook page about that, like, what do you guys love about this stuff? And most of the people are saying that, it's no one knows about this stuff. It's not in any of the local history books, really. They don't know how close it is. They love all the pictures we're showing, because a lot of people can't get out there and do that, or they moved away and they grew up here. And it's just, we're showing people what's right in their backyards, really.
Now, Brian, as part of this group, you guys go on hikes on a regular basis, sometimes every day when you have time off from work. Why are the hikes, how come they've been so popular lately?
Well, I think the group hikes are so popular because, one, people may not feel safe on a trail they don't know very well. We don't tend to hike the popular trails very often, so when we hike a trail, people are like, I've heard of that trail, I don't know where it starts, I don't know where it is. I want to hike in a group, that way I can do it safely. And then we give them the history aspect of why the trail's there, because the majority of the trails here in Juneau are here because of mining. Whether there's a mine at the end of the trail or it was a hydroelectric project, probably 90% of the trails here in Juneau are here because of the miners.
Now, do you coordinate the hikes or do you lead the hikes, and is there a difference?
We call it coordinating the hikes. It's not a new thing. There's several Facebook pages all over the United States where people coordinate group hikes for safety reasons. A friend of ours in California leads a group called Hiking with Friends, and they were having trouble with gangs and drug dealers and riffraff, I guess, on trails that were harassing people hiking in groups of 1, 2s, and 3s. And so they created this Hiking with Friends group in order to be safe while hiking on the trails. Same works for us, where we're being safe by hiking in a group. If somebody gets hurt, you have 10 other people that all have some skills or have some gear that can help get that person down off the trail.
No, you don't take any payment, you don't take any tips, anything else like that for coordinating hikes, right?
No.
That gets you in trouble with the Forest Service, doesn't it?
That'll get you in trouble with a lot of different people. So no money is exchanged, no goods or services. I've literally had people try to tip me, a $20 bill, and they're like, I'm going to throw this in your vehicle. And I'm like, if you don't take this, I'm literally going to drop it on the ground and drive away. Oh, you wouldn't do that. And I have. Because we're not taking liability for anybody. It's hiking at your own risk. It's friends hiking together, and when your friends hike with you, you're going to look after them, and nobody's at fault if somebody falls and trips or hurts themselves. You're going to look after each other, and you're going to make sure people are doing something safe, because if one of my friends is doing a risky behavior, I'm going to say, hey, you should put on a helmet right now. You should put on gloves. You know, what you're doing isn't safe. If you're leading a hike, you're literally telling someone, put on a helmet because you're in charge of them, where I'm making recommendations for safety.
Now, we actually went out the other day with both of you and also two people who ventured for the first time off of one of Juno's trails, and we've got some video of that, so let's take a look at that.
What we have here that you can't see, we're going to see here in a minute, the powerhouse sat right here. What? We're standing right about here in this photo, maybe a little closer. What? See the concrete pillar back here?
That's the glacier right behind.
And that's the glacier right behind.
My name is Sally McLaughlin, and I've lived in Juneau off and on since 1960.
So have you ever been out here before?
I've been on this trail many times, but not ever, gone off the trail at all.
My name's Dave Pernick. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm up here as a seasonal pilot. My first time in Juneau, so I've been here for 2 months so far. I don't know many people, so I've gone on a few hikes, but I've gone by myself, so this is really quite nice to meet a bunch of new people and learn a lot, go off trail a little bit. I'm definitely going to bring other people out here that I know now.
So what did you see that was new to you?
All kinds of amazing things. Lots of history out here that I never knew existed. The powerhouse, the pipe going that brought the water down to the powerhouse, everything, all that stuff, the hoist and the building that's still totally intact and all that amazing big equipment in the woods. It's just really cool.
Well, I'm always impressed with the infrastructure that people built, 100 years ago. Electricity 100 years ago. There was electricity out here before there was electricity in a lot of more modern cities, That's amazing to me.
They had power lines, and they installed the power lines first because they needed the power to run the drill equipment. So they actually tapped into the Treadwell side first and ran the power lines this way and used the power from the Treadwell side to build everything here before they sent the power back to Treadwell when they finished the project. So they had electricity out here even before the dam was built.
And the fact that those guys could bring back all that steel and build that pipe on site, relatively leak tight, and engineer that and get that done just with using a lot of hand tools, and just, it's amazing to me. I'm also a machinist by trade, so I'm fascinated by mechanical things, so I really like seeing all that old stuff laying about and imagine what it was like to put it together and the tools that they used and just the experience that they had. Try to set yourself back, put yourself in their place. We have so many modern tools now, it's just amazing to me that they could do that stuff over 100 years ago.
It's gotta be tough, Matt.
The trellis and the pipe are the most impressive because those were built on site. You can haul in a boiler. It's impressive engineering logistically to get it back here, but to build the pipe in place, that's amazing. Well, it's actually pretty easy access. You know, you have this really nicely improved trail system. Then you get off the trail a little bit, so it's not really that tough. It's not like you're bushwhacking for miles and miles. You can still get back here pretty easily and then go off trail a little bit and see that amazing dam that we saw. I've never seen the construction of a dam like that before, and it's pretty impressive. It's a nice place to hang out right below the dam there and skip rocks.
I would never have known it existed unless somebody had told me to go looking for it, or unless somebody had taken me out there and showed it to me.
Did you have fun today?
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
So some of this stuff was just like literally just a few yards or a couple yards off the trail, right?
100 yards or less, yeah.
But nobody would know where to go unless somebody was showing them.
Right. People tend to stay on trails. They're afraid to get lost, and we're not necessarily encouraging go off trail and get lost, but how to go off trail and still be safe and find your way back.
And one of our mantras is if you find a pipe, follow it, because it's going to go somewhere, and you're not going to get lost because you're going to have a pipe to get you back, and it works. You never know what you're going to find at the end of that pipe.
Often in the woods when we're surrounded by bushes and stuff and we're looking for a new mine site or a prospect, you're looking for that one man-made object to let you know that you're close. And with mining, most of them dealt with some sort of hydroelectric power to power the drills or the mining equipment. And so all of a sudden you'll have somebody like totally surrounded in Devil's Club will just yell out, "Pipe!" And everybody just crowds to that person because we know once you found the pipe, you can follow that one of two ways to get to the mine.
And work it out from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you guys got a hardcore group. What is that?
We have a group of individuals that try to find the locations. When we originally made the Junos Hidden History group, we were recruiting people to help me finish my book and to help me find different mine sites around Juneau. And it got to be where we had so many people, I might get somebody that couldn't hike 12 miles to a prospect. So we needed to narrow it down where I had people that were in athletic shape that had some sort of either hiking or mountaineering experience that I knew could be safe in stressful or semi-dangerous situations in order to finish my book and go to the different sites that I needed to go to that were more remote.
Now we have some video of you guys entering some of the mines around town. Let's see if we can roll that now as we talk a little bit more about it. I wanted to ask, what's it like in an old mine? Is it kind of, everybody expects it's cold, dark, and damp? Is it?
It's damp and it's dark. Cold is relative. If it's hot outside, it feels cold in there because they're a pretty steady temperature. But if it's minus 10 outside, it feels warm in there and you're taking stuff off. But you're always wearing helmets because there's no light in there. What you can only see as far as your helmet light beam will take you, and you never know what you're going to find around a corner. You can find waterfalls, you can find grizzlies, you can find shafts, you can find raises, you can find that stuff. It's just always looking around and always looking around for artifacts and dynamite boxes we found. We found all the stuff on the table, we found a lot of it.
How safe is it in some of these mines?
How safe? Yeah. How safe are they?
Or how dangerous is it?
Well, going underground is dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it for anybody that doesn't know what they're doing. A lot of people will tell you, well, you're not, it's not OSHA certified. You're not, you don't have all the qualifications. Well, there is no qualifications to explore abandoned mine tunnel. It's dangerous. No, I don't recommend it. If you don't know what you're doing, definitely do not go in. You can experience bad air, cave-ins, you touch the wrong thing, you could bring the whole roof down on you.
A lot of the times the entrances are the most dangerous part. You can see there, the entrance is to have all the rotting wood that's just keeping up that entrance, and you don't want to be touching that. But once you get inside, a lot of them are well, maybe not that one so much, but a lot of them are very, a lot of them are very solid inside. You just want to be
that's
careful.
that's not
You
safe.
don't want to go touch that piece of wood to see what,
That's a
how
prime
sturdy it
example
is.
of what not to touch.
And you probably shouldn't be touching some of the walls too because of some of the residue that might be on them.
Maybe not residue. There's heavy metals underground because those collect. Once you've made an opening underground, the heavy metals tend to kind of gather there. That's where you find, orange ooze coming out of tunnels, which is, iron, mercury, things that are in the earth that are all pooling together that you just don't want to drink that water. So yeah, when you get out, you wash all your stuff. We hose it off, clean it. You don't want to go eat lunch in a mine tunnel.
And you don't want to touch the sides of the mines just because of loose rock. It could bring some loose rock down on you or your foot or something.
And some of these are obviously flooded over time after being abandoned. What's the difference between a mine and a prospect?
Well, prospects that were looking for gold might not have actually found it. What was explained to me was they could file paperwork once a prospect found so much gold, and I've always heard the number 100 ounces. And my understanding is all the mines in Juneau that actually mined 100 ounces did become mines on paper, or then they could start recruiting investors, and investors were more inclined to invest in something that was called a mine rather than something that was called a prospect. There was only one occasion that we know of that over 100 ounces were mined from a tunnel, and it didn't get the term mine because the owner of the prospect and the guy who actually filled out the paperwork were in a feud, and the guy who filled out the paperwork was like, I'm not going to give you that. And because of that guy went bankrupt.
How many different how many different mines or how many prospects in the Juneau area do you think?
I've been to somewhere over 300 either caved in or open tunnels. And when I say tunnels, it's really a mine adit. A lot of people don't know the term adit, and they always ask me what it means, and I just say tunnel so people know what I'm talking about. One entrance with an end. Most of the mines around here, especially the small mines that we're looking at, have one entrance, and that's the only way out.
Were any of these really profitable, or were they all just, investment scams?
A little both. The small mines did well. If it was a mom and pop mine where there was 5 to 10 guys working it, it paid the bills. You fed yourself. You had your room and board and your alcohol, and you got yourself drunk every night after you got done mining, and they were okay with that. But then some of them, it was a big investment scam. A lot of people know of the Bear's Nest mine in Treadwell. The Bear's Nest mine was the largest mining scam in the world in its time. They got East Coast investors to invest. They salted the ore, saying that it was really good, and really they had grabbed ore from the Treadwell area and said, hey, it's as good as Treadwell, come buy this. They bought it. There was nothing there. They took off with the money. The second biggest scam that a lot of people don't know about, because it was a smaller mine that's virtually unheard of, is called the New Boston mine. And it's also on Douglas. There's a trailer park by Mike Hatch. And that trailer park is built on the tailings of that mine. At low tide, you can see this clear delta out in front of the gravel pit and the trailer park. That mine in particular has a 700-foot tunnel and a 1,100-foot tunnel. They got $625,000 of investor money and took off with it. The investors then crushed the ore and found, I think it was $40 worth of gold in it. I mean, there was no vein. It was a complete ripoff and a scam, and those guys just took off with the money.
Made some nice tunnels, though.
They did.
Some of the active or actually working prospects and mines, there's some cabins and stamp mills that have been left behind, right?
In most of them, there's some sort of ruins behind. If you find a mine tunnel in the Juneau area, more than likely there's a cabin ruin within about 100 yards of the cabin, or the opening. Because if these guys hurt themselves in these mine adits, they would immediately want to get to somewhere of shelter, and there's nothing nearby. There's no hospitals, there's no easy way to town. So you would drag yourself to your cabin and try to patch yourself up.
Some of the cabin ruins are really kind of interesting. I mean, their bed frames are still there in the corner, their pots and pans are there, lumps of coal are still there from their fireplaces. It's really fascinating.
Now, how did miners and early developers get to some of these sites with no roads and obviously no helicopters? Yeah, I mean, did they have to build a road to their preferred mine site?
Yeah, most of the time the road was built first. The prospectors would come by boat. They'd go to nearby streams. They'd check the streams by panning for gold. They'd work their way up the stream until they found what they believed was the source the gold was coming from. And then they would usually get investors. They needed money. You got to have some startup money or you can't build anything. You can't hire troops to build your road. And then wagon roads were built. One of the first little wagon roads was Spalding Meadows Trail that we all know. The John Muir cabin goes to it. Some people call it the Ocnu Trail. And it was one of the first little wagon roads from the beach up to this mine site called the Dull and Stevens Mine.
Now, we also have more video of some other equipment and other installations around town. We can watch that as we turn to a slightly different subject. It's not just mines, Joe, but there are also other auxiliary sites, hydroelectric facilities,
Right.
pre-World War II
Salmon Creek
sites.
Dam. These are the locomotives up on the top of the mine museum, correct?
And for example, West Glacier, off of the trail there's a few items of interest off of that trail, right?
There's a 1,000-yard rifle range out there. There's the old garage with a bunch of old cars. It's very, very cool. And there's also an old dump out there. If you dig around, you get lots of cans and bottles and cool things like that, just right there, not too far off the trail.
And also some early military sites, Depression-era sites also in the area?
Yeah, there are a couple concrete structures out there.
Yeah, the CCC camp was out there, the Civilian Conservation Corps. They had 5 cabins. My understanding is one cabin is still standing somewhere out at Ock Bay. Hopefully that person's in the audience. It's a chicken coop now. I'd never seen it, but that's the rumor of it. The other cabins were tore down. But during that time, the CCC was working on the Montana Creek Road and other projects in the area, building bridges.
Now, was hydroelectricity kind of the preferred way of generating power 100 years ago?
Yeah, everybody was fighting over water rights. Who owned what stream, who owned what water. Treadwell, AJ, Gastineau, there was all kinds of conflicts with who owned different streams at the time. My understanding is even Sheep Creek, where you have the little Sheep Creek power plant, in the little Sheep Creek power plant, there's actually 3 or 4 Pelton wheels, and 2 were owned by one mine and 2 were owned by another, because that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they fought over the water rights, and finally it was decided they had to share. Well, the building was already built, so the other mine was like, well, we're going to put our Pelton wheels in here too, and just lease the building from the other mine. Now,
Back in the day, was it just impossible to ship coal or oil up here to generate power? Is that how it came about as far as hydroelectricity in the area?
Hydroelectric, once you build your dam and actually have your pipes, it's free. I mean, you're going to have to replace components, but you're not paying for the shipping prices. You're not having a guy down south to buy the coal. You're not purchasing the diesel. So once you get the initial project out of the way, it's free power.
And how accessible are some of these different locations around town for the modern day explorer? Do you need a boat or helicopter for some of them, or are they pretty accessible, like off the East Glacier Trail, or is it a mix of both?
There's a lot of them are very accessible, right off the trail. Just follow the pipe. Or come with us on Junos Hidden History hikes. You know, we're posting a lot of those things, and we'll show you where some of the stuff is for sure.
Now, are a lot of these sites, these locations, are they on public or private property, and how do you kind of resolve access?
There's a mix of both. All our group hikes we do on public property. If we go to a private site, we call and contact owners if they're readily available, if we actually know that it's private property. We do quite a bit of research before we go hiking, just so we don't trespass. our recent example of hiking on private property, we went to Taku Harbor, and there was a fort there called Fort Durham, and it was there between 1840 and 1843. And it was built by the Hudson Bay Trading Company, and it sits on private property. And I had been trying to contact the owner for a while, and probably 2 hours before we left by boat to go to the harbor, I got a hold of the owner, and I said my name, and then he immediately interrupted me and just was like, "Oh, you're Brian Weed, Juno's Hidden History. My wife follows your page, you know," and I got a few words in edgewise, and he's like, "What do you need? What do you need?" And I was like, "Well, I need permission to go on your property." And I didn't even get that whole sentence out, and he was saying, "Absolutely, yes. What? Oh, Fort Durham. You want to see?" And he goes, "There's nothing there." You know, he was sure there was nothing there, nothing there. You know, it's over 100 years old. Why would there be something there? Well, we got a hold of a copy of a university study done in the 1970s, and they walked the fort. It's 150 feet by 150 feet, and they found mounds and posts of the post corners and everything, and supposedly none of that was still there. And we walked out in this huge salmonberry meadow right where it should be, and people like my wife stood on each mound as we found them, and you could barely see them through the bushes, and we videotaped walking the whole fort and took pictures of the posts and the mounds that were still there. And I mean, you were swimming through salmonberry bushes to get there, but that's the oldest European structure or history that we've ever found in the Juneau area that's still around.
Now, Joe, some of the equipment that we have here are kind of the things that you guys take on your excursions. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stuff? A lot of this is safety gear. Some of it is for special excursions. We got helmets over here, right?
Yeah, well, the helmets are the most important things to keep us from bonking our heads. It's pretty much not for rock fall. It's just from actually cracking your head up on top of the rocks that are above you. Because if a rock falls on you, this thing's really not going to really do a whole lot of good. Then, of course, the headlamp, really powerful. We can turn night into day with these things. Gloves, always wear gloves. These gloves are dear to me because I left them in a mine one year, and we came back the next year, and there they were, sitting there waiting for me. Brian, you got some helmets and stuff?
Yeah, I have different helmets for different adventures. Like Joe, I have a helmet for if you're going in a straight mine at it that has a low ceiling. Miners standing a tall person 100 years ago was 5'8", and now we're looking at over 6 foot for tall people. But most miners were under 5'8", so the tunnels are dug. The little guys are 6 feet tall, and you're going to hit your head, and it hurts. I've worn a helmet, and I've still dropped to my knees because you just crack your head so hard on them. So I have the head protection helmet, and then when we go rock climbing, or if we're in something that has a larger room where a rock can fall a significant distance, you want to have the webbing in the inside to absorb some of the impact. And then we have our pack rafting helmet. We recently got into pack rafting. We found it was an easier way to get to some of the more remote areas if you can cross the lake or the creek instead of wading through it or going around it. The pack rafts behind us here weigh between 4 and 5 pounds.
They're fabulous.
They can pack down to a little bigger than a shoebox, and our paddles break down into 4 pieces, so the longest piece is about yay long. You can shove them in your backpack, tie them onto something.
We've got the air monitor too.
Yeah, this little device, I bet you it makes noise.
It does.
It should.
Yep.
What he's playing with is a 4-gas air monitor. It monitors oxygen level, methane, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. All things to be aware of when you're in a mine tunnel. But pretty much when your oxygen level starts dropping, you know one of these other gases are replacing it, and you should probably get out.
And we have had it go off on us in a mine before. And we have left the mine immediately. You don't question it, you just get out.
Yeah, as soon as it goes off, don't even look at it, just go.
Does that mean I have to, oh.
It's asking for a
Means we're
calibration.
talking too much.
Wants you to hit the button. We used to use this model a lot, and recently we switched to a kind of more user-friendly model that has an expiration life of 24 months, and then you throw it away. We found that was way more reliable than something I had to constantly calibrate. kind of a little more user-friendly. They're smaller, they clip on. They're about $100 and they last 2 years.
Tell me about the last time this came in handy for you guys.
The last time it came in handy, we were in South Douglas.
Yeah, Alaska Treasure Mine.
What happened there?
Well, Alaska Treasure Mine's full of sulfur veins, and when sulfur mixes with water, it releases some pretty poisonous gases. And so as we walked into the mine at it, it's about 1.5 miles long with one entrance, so no good airflow. As you walked into the mine, you stirred up the water, so the gases were released behind us as we were walking in. So the air monitor didn't go off, everything's fine. Definitely one of the more dangerous ones you could definitely go into that would give you some issues. And we stopped to take some pictures, and while we were stopped taking pictures, the air monitor went off. And I looked at it, I'm like, whoa, this baby's dropping real fast. So we packed up, started heading out, and as we're heading out, I'm watching it, and it continues to plummet. And it got down to about 16.5%, and regular oxygen levels is 20.9. And at 16.5, it was tunnel vision, headaches, migraine, dizzy.
We could tell.
You're shutting down. My understanding is somewhere around 14, you're not even walking anymore. So we were quickly heading out. So definitely there's a danger there where if you don't know what you're doing, you are going to hurt yourself. From then on, anytime we got near sulfur or water, you don't stir it up. Where we were just casually walking in because we had the blueprints for the tunnel. We knew there was no shafts in the water. Hey, this tunnel's totally safe. It's a nice straight line. But little did we know our casual walking in the water actually stirred everything up.
So walk gingerly, don't pull your feet up and out of the water and splash.
Yeah, don't splash around.
On the Facebook pages, of course, a lot of videos and pictures, some of what we've seen already here, but aren't you sort of worried that perhaps publicizing or posting pictures of some of these places might encourage other people to, engage in other activities like theft or vandalism of some of these sites, artifacts?
We've talked about that, and these locations are virtually unknown for the majority of the population of Juneau, but you're still going to come across graffiti every time we come back to a new place. Even if we haven't given away the location, something has changed. You're always going to have that one bad apple. So our question kind of to the public would be, do you want 10,000 people to see what amazing history is out there and still have the one bad apple? Or do you want 10 people to stumble upon it, not know what it was, and still have that one bad apple? Where the history's disappearing anyway. The Tongass National Forest is eating up everything that's made out of metal, all the mine tunnels, mine adits, whatever you want to call them. The first 20 feet's the most dangerous because that gets the weathering. So we have cave-ins, you have landslides, you have a tree falls over, and it's gone. So these things are disappearing as it is. So we're not too worried about somebody going in and stealing graffiti, stuff like that, after the fact, where 10,000 people got to see the place before it was gone anyway.
And my hope would be that people would appreciate everything that's in there and not want to go in there and mess with it. I mean,
Now, in some of the other locations around town, much like down in the Wrangell area, there's evidently some sites that have petroglyphs, which are kind of an archaeological resource. So what's your routine for that? Do you just kind of take people out to that particular site and show them, but not publicize the location with GPS coordinates and that sort of thing?
Well, recently we came across some petroglyphs out of Berners Bay area. A lot of people thought, we were the first ones to find it, and not the case. I think we were the first ones maybe to actually use a tripod and take a high-res photo of it, and maybe doctor it up in Lightroom, make it look really nice where you could actually see the petroglyph. But people were like, oh, they're giving away this location. They're, now those petroglyphs are at risk. Well, somebody told me where they were, and somebody told that person where they were. So we decided in cases like that where it's not readily near town, we would give a general location like Berners Bay. If somebody really wants to go out and find it, they're going to go out and find it. But somebody's not going to go out and find it with a can of spray paint and look all over Berners Bay for these petroglyphs. And if they do, they were going to do it anyway. We want to protect those resources, but we want people to see them, and you're not protecting them if the public doesn't know about them. They need to see their history and where they came from.
And getting back to the safety issue, we have some video and some pictures of you guys in some of the ice caves in town off of the glacier. I'm going to show some of that. There are some, I guess, some myths that maybe some of these ice caves are a safe place to be. Of course, we had last year in Washington State, at least four people lost their lives in an ice cave. Tell me a little bit about some of the concerns that you have about going through some of these areas here.
Oh, I think ice caves are far more dangerous than most of the mines we go in. I mean, that thing's always shifting. The rocks in the ceiling can come down on you at any time. I mean, you have to understand that going in there is, you're risking life and limb for sure. My worries are slipping and falling on the ice in the winter inside and not really being able to get out. You can scrunch down in there, go really far into the ice if you want, and be crushed and just like that. But it's a risk versus reward thing, and the reward when you go in there is it's gorgeous, it's beautiful in there. You just have to be aware that it's a very dangerous place to be, and anything could happen.
Nice.
Like that, to me.
I always get worried when I see pictures of little kids in there with their families. You see pets and little kids, and they post pictures on the internet, and I see them, and I see exactly where they're standing because I was there last week, and where they're standing, because it's a dirt spot, they think it's safe. And really, you look above them, and you'll see the dark ice, and the dark ice can hold boulders and rocks, and those things can fall at any time. And these people aren't wearing helmets. A little kid's not going to be able to take a softball hit to the top of the head, from it falling 10 feet.
It's not Disneyland out there, for sure.
The ice caves are probably the most dangerous place we go. I've never been worried in a mine tunnel about a rock falling on me, but every time we go in the ice caves, man, I'm in and out. It's take your pictures and get out as fast as you can.
We have some time for questions from the audience. If you have something that you want to ask Joe or Brian, go ahead and step up to the microphone, and we'll get you lined up here. And once, like mine entrances, the opening, that is one of the most dangerous places, right?
Well, same with ice caves.
Yeah.
Yep.
The entrance on an ice cave slowly collapses over time as it gets thin, but really you can have a part somewhere in the middle that's just gotten thin and can't hold its own weight anymore.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody else would like to ask Joe or Brian something about hidden history in Juneau? Don't be shy.
I'll talk about anything. Come
Yeah,
on.
he will.
Yeah. We had a whole hour blocked out for this.
Brian, did you publish your book?
No. We originally were going to get a grant through the City Museum. The City Museum apparently thought it was a liability to produce a book showing what the history looks like today, showing mine tunnel pictures and stuff. They definitely expressed a
declined to give us a
liability issue.
grant.
Yeah. My understanding is a cookbook got it. I'm not sure, but that's what I heard. So we were like, okay, well, we won't produce the book at this time, and I had a few other mines I wanted to do. We were going to rush the book in order to meet the deadline for the grant. So instead, I finished my list. I currently have, we call it 3 mines, but it's really 2 that I have to finish. Behind Bessie Mountain, if any of you are familiar with that area, Yankee Cove, Aldershine area, there's a trail called Bessie Creek Trail. It's not used very often, maybe a dozen people a year. Up behind there, there's a mine. Oh, good grief. Now it leaves my memory. Greg, help me out. What's the name of the mine? No,
the
the
one we
next
haven't
one.
been to.
Alaska, Washington.
Last one.
Alaska, Washington. Alaska, Washington. I'm following a lot of Earl Redmond's work. He worked for Bureau of Mines and was basically told to go to all these mine tunnels and test them to see if any of them were worth reopening. Is there any gold left in them? And he said the Alaska, Washington mine was the hardest one for him to find. So it's kind of been at the end of my list also, even though I have his map showing approximately where it's located. I'm still hesitant to go there just because last time we were there, we looked up the gully and there's huge piles of snow and it's like 80-degree slope, and not looking forward to that last hike.
How many mines are going to be in the book? Do you know yet?
I don't. I'll have all of them once I have the 3. And the other 2 are located on the top of Mount Roberts, Gastineau area.
I have 2 questions.
Please step up to the microphone so that we can get your voice on tape here.
Everybody'd love to hear you.
That's okay.
I am very thankful that a lot of people in the audience have been hiking with us before, which I'm pretty excited about. Thank you for all coming.
Thank you.
My first question is, do you wear cleats on your boots or whatever when you're in the ice caves? To keep
Absolutely.
from slipping around?
Sure.
If there's ice on the ground, in the wintertime, that creek can freeze, and it can be very slick in there, so I would wear ice cleats or crossing over the top of the glacier to get to it.
And the other question is, when you're in the mines or back on one of the off trails, is there some kind of, I'm kind of clueless about technology, but do you have some kind of a GPS, something or another, that if you've told somebody where you're going to be, and I guess that's part of the question is, do you always tell somebody where you're going to be? and is there a GPS, something or another, that can help them find you if
Yes.
you don't return?
We use 2 different programs on our cell phones. Originally, I used what's called a Garmin GPS. And the problem with here in Alaska is the Garmin satellites are too low on the horizon. So the Garmin GPSs had trouble connecting if you were in a gully or in a valley where most of these mines are. So I switched to using my cell phone, and my cell phone's in a protective case so it can be dropped in water, it won't break easy. And the 2 programs we use are, one's called Gaia GPS, and the other one's called Backcountry Navigator. And you can download the maps of the area you're going to be in, and it'll show you within 33 feet or 100 feet of where you are. So when you're back in the woods, 100 feet's pretty good about where you are. As far as an emergency beacon, several members of our group do carry emergency beacons that can send out a message no matter where you are. The most common one people are using is called a spot device. And that spot device has several buttons. One button you can press, you can program it to send a pre-message text to somebody like, I'm okay but running late. And so then they know, oh, okay, they're running late, but they're okay. And then the next button could be, hey, I've hurt myself, don't call 911, but send somebody down the trail to come help. Or then you have the emergency beacon where it calls 911, it contacts the local 911 place and says approximately where you are on GPS.
I have so many friends that have cell phones that don't work here and there all around Juneau. Are yours totally reliable?
The GPS feature on the cell phone is totally reliable. Once it locks onto your location using the cell phone towers, it'll tell you within 100 feet of where you are. Sometimes it might take 5 minutes to connect, but no.
Oh, no.
Most of the time we can't talk to anybody on our cell phones. For emergency use, we do have a VHF radio that is programmed to just a ton of different frequencies. So if a helicopter was flying over, we could talk to Temsco, talk to some aircraft, call the Coast Guard, Forest Service, the police department. With VHF, there's a lot of towers because we live in Southeast and everyone has a boat. So a lot of the marine frequencies will work back in these valleys.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
And I believe you had a personal experience that kind of highlighted the importance of going out with a larger group rather than just going out with 2 or 3 people.
Oh,
Tell me about that.
Injuries? We've had 2 major injuries in our hiking group. One was myself. I was out on the Bessie Creek Trail, and I wasn't actually doing anything. I was standing on the trail, and somebody said something, and I turned to look at them, and I slipped off this log that I was standing on, and I felt something pop in my knee. Yeah, all these knee injury people. You know what I'm talking about. Later we found, the doctor described it to me as a rubber band with a nickel attached to it. And what happened was I didn't actually tear the tendon, it removed a chunk of bone from my knee. So I had this floppy piece with a nickel attached to it in my knee, and they decided not to fix it. The reasoning behind that is I'm still hiking, 15 miles a day, and they were worried if we did the surgery I'd be hiking half a mile a day, because they were worried about what might happen if they got in there and rooted around. But because of that, my injury, we had, I want to say 15, 20 people on that hike. One guy carried my pack. One guy loaned me his trek poles. Another person had duct tape, so I duct taped my legs straight. And I used the trek pole. I still beat everybody down the hill. I was a tripod, but I did it. And because of that, we were able to pass off the gear, and people had safety equipment, and I knew I was going to get out just fine. We had another injury out at Sawmill Creek. Sawmill Creek is south of Berners Bay, but north of Echo Cove. And a gentleman was standing in the creek, and he wanted to get closer to the waterfall. And being his friend, I recommended he put on some gloves because the area is covered with shale, and if he were to slip in the creek, he might cut himself. And he was like, "Oh, I'm fine." And being that we're friends, I didn't tell him to put on gloves and let him slip and fall. And he sliced his palm open and did it to the bone. It was pretty bad. And we had a nurse with us. We had our multiple first aid kits. We patched him up. There was a university study there being done on the creek, so there was actually some people with a skiff. And he was like, "No, I can walk out." And so we hiked out 3.5 miles or something, and he was all bandaged up, and we went right to the ER with him. And only downside was he was a pilot. So it took him several months to get recertified through the federal government to be able to fly again. But luckily they let him work at a desk job, so he didn't lose a job because of it. But he wore gloves from then on, though.
Tell me a little bit more about your experience with hiking with other people. I mean, it's kind of grown into a bigger thing. You kind of go out and kind of encourage people to go out and get away from their screens and that sort of thing, and it's become sort of a social experience as well.
Yeah, we've made some really great friends doing this, for sure, yeah. I even met my fiance doing this, which is terrific.
But I was trying to draw you out here, that you had a point that you made several weeks ago about that issue, about getting people out and about and see the scenery. And
Well, I like getting them off the trails, because people don't want to go off the trails. That's one of the things I learned from doing this with Brian, is there's lots of great stuff off the trails. If you have a GPS and a good map and you know where you kind of want to go, hey, just go for it. Take a look around. You don't have to stay on the trails. There's lots of safe stuff to do. Don't go crazy. Don't be climbing cliffs or anything, but you don't have to follow the trodden path. You can make your own now. It's very cool.
now recently you folks kind of ventured a little bit outside of the Juneau area and the McCarthy area. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we just recently came back from the Kennecott mine. My idea was to go to the Kennecott mine. My uncle was going there with his friends, and they had access to four-wheelers, and they had rented the Kennecott River Lodge. And so we stayed there and got to basically had our own private four-wheeler the whole time, and got to ride halfway up to all these different mines that are in the area, and got to go to some of the really high elevation mines where if you were to stay in Kennecott for a couple of days, you might see one of them, where we ended up seeing like all of them.
All of them.
The first day we did the hardest hike, which was up to the Erie mine. It is definitely billed as a really hard hike, and I have mountaineering experience and climbing, and it was the highest thing I've done and probably the most dangerous. Several exposed areas. It was definitely class 5, where if you slipped, you were going to fall 1,000 feet. I mean, you were going to be gone. The benefit of going there was the pictures we took and the videos we took. We hauled a lot of camera equipment up there, where most people hiking up to Erie are hauling their water, their food, and a change of clothes. Because who wants to haul 15 pounds of camera equipment up to this mine? Well, our photos are going to go public where anybody can look at them. They're posted on our site right now. We're in the process of editing them and posting them where anybody can see what the Erie Mine looks like today.
Without having to do the hike.
Yeah, without having to do the hike. The mine is the bunkhouse is in the process of falling down a cliff. I can't see it around much longer. You get a big heavy snow, big heavy wind, it's gone. And so we're preserving history through photography.
And how old is this facility? How old is it?
Oh, I don't know when the Kennecott actually shut down. I want to say 1930s, somewhere in there. Some dentists went in after the mine shut down and tried to restart it up. But the trains weren't running anymore, so they tried to fly all the copper out and
Went bankrupt real
Yeah,
fast.
bankrupt. Can't fly copper out, it's not worth it. But we hiked up to all those different mines and took high-res photos and video and going to release those to the public so they can see what it's like. Because we YouTubed videos before we went, and all of them were shaky, little handheld cell phone cameras and, mom and pop hiking up the mine. Oh, here's Junior, here's this, and oh, look, there's a boiler. And then, immediately pan back to Junior drinking out of the creek and stop that, So there wasn't really anything to see the history of the mine and what's still there.
We've only got a few minutes left, but we've also got a few other things on the table here. Some items brought back from some of the hikes. I wonder if you could do a little bit of a show and tell here as far as some of the more...
Talk about the cool axes.
Axe heads. How about the axe heads? You want to talk about axe heads? What do you want to talk about? Some of the tools and stuff aren't necessarily from the Juneau area, but they are from the mining days here in Alaska. There's a group I'm a part of that digs old tools out of the muskeg up north, and we trade pieces and parts of different things we found, or you can just purchase it from them. The handle of this one is Douglas fir, and it was a railroad tie at one time, and so you can see the railroad spikes still in it. And then the axe head is around the 1887 time frame. The mine it was found at, we're assuming it was hand forged based on the patterns in it. Same with the double bit axe, you can actually see the fold right at the blade.
Also on the table is some core samples and some unique looking little pebbles, round pebbles. I believe we saw a picture of those in one of the slideshows. What are these?
Well, cavers know them as cave pearls, and much like the way stalagmites and stalactites are made, minerals drip from the ceiling, and they fall into a little bit of water that's at the bottom of the mine floor, and it usually is in a small pool. And the minerals coat a little pebble, and they keep coating the pebble, and on a rainy day, a lot of water, goes through the mine tunnel floor, and so that pebble then rolls, and you'll end up getting this, what we call a bird's nest of these little
eggs.
cave pearls.
Yeah.
And they come in all different colors based on what mineral is dripping from the ceiling. And definitely a unique find in the area.
And what are these crystalline-looking objects here? What are we?
Quartz crystals.
Yep.
Some of the mines in Juneau have significant crystal structures. For example, the crystal mine out by Snettisham, they have pyrite cubes and crystals in that one. There's a 2-inch by 2-inch perfect cube in the Smithsonian Museum that's from the crystal mine here in the Juneau area. This story was actually kind of fun. Joe and I were in one of the large open stopes in the crystal mine, and the crystals tend to be in the mud. And I felt this baby bonk my leg, and I'm wearing hip waders, and I feel it, and I get all excited, and I'm like, "Hey, Joe, look at this! Look at this!
Bumped
Ha ha!"
my leg.
And then he immediately pulls that out, and
And he immediately pouted because I had bragging rights on this one.
it was sad. He had to haul that out the whole way,
yeah.
which was very significant.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thanks a lot for both of you coming in. Everybody give a nice round of applause for Brian Weed and Jill McCabe. I'm Matt Miller. That's it for Forum at 360. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Funding for Forum at 360 comes from Rainbow Foods of Juneau.